In this video, we're going to talk all about ferrocerium rods and what you need to know. I'm Will, and welcome to Will Survive.
We fight for our survival.
The first thing you might want to know about ferro rods is ferrocerium is a synthetic pyrophoric alloy that produces sparks that can reach temperatures of 3,000 degrees Celsius or 5,430 degrees Fahrenheit via an oxidization process. Meaning as soon as you scrape, it's exposed to the oxygen that creates the chemical reaction, which causes it to burn. The second thing you need to know is you need to scrape off the black protective coating and get to the chrome underneath before you can actually get sparks from it. With that being said, ferro rods are great for starting fires, whether you're at home, you're out camping, or you find yourself in a real survival situation, as they last much longer than a lighter or a pack of matches, and they will always give you a spark no matter what weather conditions you're dealing with. Finding suitable tinder, depending on the weather, is a whole different story. When conditions are wet, finding tinder, or firewood for that matter, can be quite a challenge. So don't depend on the woods to find your tinder when it really counts. Always keep some on you that's already dry and ready to go, whether you're hiking, camping, or in the woods for any reason. Because when you're out in the woods and you're wet and cold is when you need a fire the most. Having a Ziploc bag or a small Altoids tin full of cotton balls is always a good thing to have on you. They're always quick and easy to light with a single spark. They're also cheap, lightweight, and take almost no space in your pack. Just make sure you have everything you need to get your fire going right next to you before you start your fire, because cotton balls on their own won't burn for very long. Although you can add wax or Vaseline or even chapstick to extend the flame for around 2 minutes. I won't go into all the things that make good tinder in this video. Just remember, a few cotton balls on you at all times will serve you well. I'm also not going to go over all the ways to throw a spark with your ferro rod in this video, because I have a specific video on that subject alone. If you'd like to watch that video, just click up here, and I'll put that video as a watch next video at the end of this one, so you can watch this one and then watch that one. Whether you use a striker, the back of your knife, or the back of your multi-tool folding saw, a 45-degree angle will work best. If you try 90, nothing's going to happen. If you get it too shallow, again, nothing's going to happen. Find that perfect 45-degree angle, and then sparks will happen for you. If the spine of your knife doesn't already have a nice, sharp 90-degree angle, you can create one by putting it blade down in a vise with at least 1/4 inch of the spine sticking up, and you take a standard file and you can file a 90-degree angle into your spine. You may want to use a towel or a rag around the knife in the vise to avoid getting teeth marks from the vise in the blade of your knife. Another important thing to consider about ferro rods is they will corrode if they're exposed to salt water, salt air, or the sweat from your body. So don't keep your ferro rods in your pocket. You can put it in your backpack or keep it with the rest of your fire kit, preferably both. Redundancy is key in survival. As the saying goes, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So keep one extra one in your fire starting kit and keep the other one with your knife so you can get to it easily whenever you need to. If your knife sheath doesn't already have a ferro holder, there's plenty of ways to create one. You can use paracord, bank line, a straw and some glue, or my personal favorite, Gorilla Tape, so that you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, as Gorilla Tape by itself is flammable if it's processed right, meaning pull it into very thin strips. So there's lots of surface area to catch that spark. As you can see, I've made my own ferro holder with this knife and this smaller knife. Ferro rods come in all sizes and densities, and with multiple different kinds of handles. Most ferro rods, like this inexpensive Coghlan, come with their own designated strikers, but I prefer to use the back of my knife. But I do keep the striker in my fire kit, just in case. When you do use the spine or the back of your knife, make sure you hold the knife very firmly and scrape with the section closest to the handle, not way out on the tip, for more stability. I also prefer rods that have a hole at one end for a lanyard as opposed to some type of handle. As you can see, this inexpensive Coghlan one has a plastic handle. Some come with wood, some come with really cool bone pieces or deer antler or whatever. But the handle is always a weak spot. It is always going to fall off eventually. If you're using bank line or paracord or whatever, there's no weak spot and there's nothing to break. So it's always going to be there for you when you need it. Tarred bank line can be used as tinder in a pinch if you process it properly. But wax jute line is much more flammable and will extend the flame for quite a while. So using wax jute as your lanyard is a great option. If I did choose to glue on a handle to my ferro rod, I would glue on fat wood, and I'd glue it on with pine pitch glue. That way I'd have all-weather tinsel built right into my ferro rod. Now back to the sizes. In ferro rods, size does matter. So get the largest one you can find and or afford. Larger ferro rods are very durable, they're not going to break on you, and they're going to last you a lot longer than a smaller ferro rod. Smaller, cheaper ferro rods could break, leaving you with pieces that are too small to be used. Plus a larger one will last you much larger. For instance, this 3-inch, very inexpensive Coghlan will last you about 12,000 strikes, where this larger Bayite model will last you at least 30,000 strikes. A longer ferro rod will give you a longer stroke, therefore more strikes per stroke, and you're more likely to cause combustion with less strokes, less time, and less frustration. Also consider how much easier it is to hold a larger ferro rod when you're cold, shivering, or are wearing gloves. There are also hard rods and soft rods. Most small rods tend to be fairly soft, where most large rods tend to be fairly hard. And yes, I know how that sounds. Okay, but you can find all sizes in all densities. The harder the material is, the longer it'll last, but the more pressure it will take to get a spark. A softer rod is much easier to get a lot of sparks with less pressure, but they won't last as long. So figure out what works best for you. The smaller, softer ferro rods can be better for lighting very small tinder. By using the thumb assist method that I show in my 8 ways to use a ferro rod video. Again, I'll link that video at the end of this video so you can watch that one next. No matter what type of rod or tinder you're using, make sure your tinder is nice and dry. And always process your tinder down as small as you can to create more surface area. That's the secret to using a ferro rod. But tinder is a topic worthy of its own video, so we'll talk about that in another one. And since our ferro rod is such an important tool, let's talk about visibility. We can use brightly colored paracord for a lanyard, or cordage that has reflective materials woven in it. So that if you have a flashlight or a headlamp, you shine in that direction, you'll still be able to see it, even if the cordage itself isn't very bright. We can also spray paint or dip the butt end of our ferro rod in brightly colored paint. If we leave it on the ground and walk away, something brightly colored will make it much easier for you to find. Wrapping Gorilla Tape around the butt end also gives us a nice handle. And again, Gorilla Tape is flammable, and it can be used for many different types of repairs or to cover a cut or laceration that we may get when we're out in the woods. After a while of using your ferro rod, it may end up looking like a washboard with kind of hills and valleys, which can render it mostly useless. If this does happen to you, what you can do is just use a standard file and file it perpendicularly as you rotate it until you get back to a nice round smooth surface, so it'll be usable again. If you like this video, give it a like. If you learned something from it or found it useful, subscribe, click that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me. I'm Will. This is Will Survive. Be safe, be prepared, have a good one, and later on.
We fight for our survival.
Oh, I see a squirrel in the background. Hi, squirrel. Hey, dear squirrely squirrel. Squirrels everywhere. There's more squirrels than people.